Chapter 10, The Tiger Rising. Rob was sweeping the laundry room when Willie Mae, the Kentucky Star's housekeeper, came in and threw herself down on one of the metal chairs that were lined up against the cement block wall. "You know what?" she said to Rob. "No, ma'am," said Rob. "I tell you what," said Willie Mae. She reached up and adjusted the butterfly clip in her thick black hair. "I'd rather be sweeping up after some pigs in a barn than cleaning up after people in this place. Pigs at least give you some respect." Rob leaned on his broom and stared at Willie Mae. He liked looking at her. Her face was smooth and dark, like a beautiful piece of wood, and Rob liked to think that if he had been the one who carved Willie Mae, he would have made her just the way she was, with her long nose and high cheekbones and slanted eyes. "What are you staring at?" Willie Mae asked. Her eyes narrowed. "What are you doing out of school?" Rob shrugged. "I don't know," he said. "What do you mean you don't know?" Rob shrugged again. "Don't be moving your shoulders up and down in front of me, acting like some skinny old bird trying to fly away. You want to end up cleaning motel rooms for a living?" Rob shook his head. "That's right, and nobody wants this job. I'm the only fool Beaucamp can pay to do it. You got to stay in school," she said, "else you'll end up like me." She shook her head and reached into the pockets of her dress and pulled out a single cigarette and 2 sticks of 8-ball licorice gum. She put one piece of gum in her mouth and handed the other one to Rob, lit her cigarette, leaned back in the chair, and closed her eyes. "Now," she said. The scent of smoke and licorice filled the laundry room. "Go on and tell me why you ain't in school." "On account of my legs being all broke out," said Rob. Willie Mae opened her eyes and looked over the top of her glasses at Rob's legs. She said after a minute. "How long you had that?" "About 6 months," said Rob. "I can tell you how to cure that," said Willie Mae, pointing with her cigarette at his legs. "I can tell you right now. Don't need to go no doctor." "Huh?" said Rob. He stopped chewing his gum and held his breath. What if Willie Mae healed him and he had to go back to school? "Sadness," said Willie Mae, closing her eyes and nodding her head. "You keep all that sadness down low in your legs, not letting it get up to your heart where it belongs. You gotta let that sadness rise on up." "Oh," said Rob. He let his breath out. He was relieved. Willie Mae was wrong. She couldn't cure him. "The principal thinks it's contagious," he said. "Man ain't got no sense," Willie Mae said. "He's got lots of certificates," Rob offered. "They're all framed and hung up on his wall." "I bet he ain't got no certificate for sense, though," said Willie Mae darkly. She rose up out of her chair and stretched. "I gotta clean some rooms." Sorry, guys. She said, "You ain't gonna forget what I told you about them legs, are you?" "No, ma'am," said Rob. "What'd I tell you then?" Sorry, got distracted. "What'd I tell you then?" she said, towering over him. Willie Mae was tall, the tallest person Rob had ever seen. "To let the sadness rise," Rob said. He repeated the words as if they were part of a poem. He gave them a certain rhythm, the same way Willie Mae had when she said them. "That's right," said Willie Mae. "You gotta let the sadness rise on up." She left the room in a swirl of licorice and smoke. After she was gone, Rob wished that he had told her about the tiger. He felt a sudden, desperate need to tell somebody who wouldn't doubt him, somebody who was capable of believing in tigers. Chapter 11. The afternoon, Rob was out in front of the Kentucky Star, weeding between the cracks in the sidewalk when the school bus rumbled up. "Hey!" he heard Norton Threemonger yell. Rob didn't look up. He concentrated on the weeds. "Hey, disease boy!" Norton shouted. "We know what you got. It's called leprosy." "Yeah," Billy shouted. "Leprosy. All of your body parts are gonna fall off." "They're gonna rot off," Norton yelled. "Yeah," Billy screamed. "That's what I meant. Rot. They're gonna rot off." Rob stared at the sidewalk and imagined the tiger eating Norton and Billy Threemonger and then spitting out their bones. "Hey," Norton shouted. "Here comes your girlfriend, disease boy." The bus coughed and sputtered and finally roared away. Rob looked up. Sistine was walking toward him. She was wearing a lime green dress. As she got closer, he could see that it was torn and dirty. "I brought your homework," she said. She held out a red notebook stuffed full of papers. The knuckles on her hand were bleeding. "Thank you," said Rob. He took the notebook. He was determined to say nothing else to her. He was determined to keep his words inside himself, where they belonged. Sistine stared past him at the motel. It was an ugly 2-story building, squat and small, composed entirely of cement block. The doors of each room were painted a different color, pink or blue or green, and there was a chair painted in a matching color sitting in front of each door. "Why is this place called the Kentucky Star?" Sistine asked. "Because," said Rob. It was the shortest answer he could think of. "Because why?" she asked. Rob sighed. "Because Bo Camp, the man who owns it, he had a horse once called Kentucky Star." "Well," said Sistine, "it's a stupid name for a hotel in Florida." Rob shrugged. It started to rain. Sistine stood in front of him and continued to stare. She looked at the motel and then over at the blinking Kentucky Star sign, and then she looked back at him as if it was all a math equation she was trying to come out right. She was trying to make come out right in her head. The rain made her hair stick to her scalp. It made her dress droopy. Rob looked at her small, pinched face and her bleeding knuckles and dark eyes, and he felt something inside him open up. It was the same way he felt when he picked up a piece of wood and started working on it, not knowing what it would be, and then watching it turn into something he recognized. He took a breath. He opened his mouth and let the words fall out. "I know where there's a tiger." Sistine stood in the drizzly rain and stared at him with her eyes black and fierce. She didn't say, "A real one?" She didn't say, "Are you crazy?" She didn't say, "You're a big old liar." She said one word, "Where?" And Rob knew then that he had picked the right person to tell. And that's the end of 11.